Okay, looks like I'm live now. I don't know how the audio is going to be on this. This is my first ever phone live stream. I'm on vacation right now, obviously, so I don't have access to any of my usual stuff. But I did just want to talk briefly about the earnings call that just finished. I did listen to it on my phone, and I was pretty excited about it, honestly. I thought it was a very good call. We got a lot of important info, and I'm really happy with how it went. I do want to check the stock price in the after hours. I didn't actually check that before going live. I would like to think it would be going up at least a little bit, but I guess who knows. Hey, Johnny Mac, thank you for tuning in. Glad to see that I'm actually live and this is working. Let me know how the audio is on the phone because I have no idea. I've never done this before. And hey, 42 Lou as well. Good to see you. So yeah, I was just gonna go over briefly what was talked. It was just flat. I don't think less than. Oh, the stock is flat. I thought you were talking about the audio here. Hey Tim, always good to see you. Oh, it's good. All you guys are joining. A lot of you probably already listened to the whole call, so you probably know a lot of this. But yeah, just some takeaways I had. Obviously, they did end up only guiding for 2 Electron flights for Q4. And I guess the question is, am I disappointed? And I don't think I am or should be. I feel like this is more of a case of, me just not understanding the launch industry and how difficult it is to return to flight. And I was probably overly optimistic when I initially was saying, oh, I hope they could do. Hey man, how's it going? And Ghost Eye as well, one of our OG channel members. Glad you joined. You got your little logo there. So yeah, only 2 Electron launches in Q4, and I think again I shouldn't be disappointed. That's just me not really understanding the reality of how difficult it is to return to launch. Those 2 launches, I'm confident they'll go well. And in Q4, we are now having more launches next year than they originally told us. So 2 more launches, I guess, that would have originally been in Q4 are being pushed to Q1 of next year. Now we're looking at 22 launches next year instead of 20, which is really amazing. That is, more than doubling launch cadence year over year. So absolutely massive growth. Up 2.3% now. That's nice to hear. I'd like to get a nice bump in the stock tomorrow. I know some of you out there are probably still trying to buy, so maybe you disagree with me. But yeah, I really like the call. So 22 launches next year. We were originally at the start of the year thinking maybe 20. So that's, an improvement in 2024. The margins should be better there. That's really almost the target of 50% gross margin. That it has been the target forever. They need to get to 24 launches. Now we're at 22 next year, so that's really, really close to being there. The management team saying that they're basically booked. They're completely sold out for launch next year. They don't really have a ton of availability, which is nice to hear because it's always been, the demand question, but clearly the demand seems to be there now. So nice to hear about that. They did mention in terms of HASTE that they've had 7 launches booked for HASTE since starting that program, including one today, I believe. I didn't get any details on that one today, but they're always usually pretty secretive. So I don't know if they would have given any details. Yeah, basically toilet stream yet. I'm actually not in a bathroom. I'm in a hotel room here. But yeah, background is the wall. So not the bathroom. Yeah, thanks for sharing those launch numbers, Rocketeer. I do appreciate it. And anyone is curious about that, they're down there in the comments. So one HASTE launch booked today. The demand for HASTE seems to be a bit stronger than we initially thought it would be. Dark times I assume you're talking about the world situation right now. as opposed to Rocket Lab, because I don't really consider the times too dark, personally anyway. One thing I was surprised by is when they were talking about the 22 launches next year, and they were asked, well, how many of those are from Virginia? The answer was only 2 to 3, maybe. That seemed quite low to me, so I was a little surprised by that. I guess that's the advantage of, having their own launch complex in New Zealand, being able to launch whenever they want, not have to deal with, as much regulatory authorities, I think, as they do in the US. And by the way, the general Johnny Mac, I was curious about that because I know a lot of New Zealanders, and by the way, I love the hiring. I think it's very smart, very savvy move. That 27, for launch services in Q3. I'm going to have to dive into those numbers more. Again, I just listened to it. I did take some notes, but now that Q3 is done and we have guidance not only for Q4, but Q1, which is amazing. I wasn't expecting to get any guidance for Q1 of 2024, but they did give it, and it sounds very good. So once I get back, I'm going to go through all these numbers, update my models, and what I think, the financials are going to look like next year. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of changes, but I really do. Yeah, I really am excited that we got all those numbers. They did also reveal that they have a new contract for the design and build out of a new spacecraft. Apparently it's super secret sauce and they can't say who it's for, but they did say that it's basically using all Rocket Lab components. So, the bus, the spacecraft bus, the reaction wheels, I assume the solar as well. I wonder if I wrote it down here. I just wrote all components because there was a list of a bunch of components. So it sounded like it was just one spacecraft, but a fairly complicated one and a fairly difficult mission. So hopefully it has a bit of an outsized impact on the financials. And, because they're doing the whole stack, that should be helpful. How many shares do hey, DIY Undercover. Anyway, yeah, curious who that customer is. I'm thinking maybe government. Maybe we'll find out down the line. Maybe we won't. In Q4, they are expecting some more revenue recognition to come in for that big MDA Globalstar contract, which is obviously the biggest contract they have on the space systems. So I think things are, chugging along pretty well on the space system side of things. Yeah, there was a slight beat in terms of revenue for space systems. The gross margin, the GAAP gross margin, was slightly above guidance as well, so that was pretty good. And the margins are expected to continue to improve. In terms of the backlog, they do have a 48 million increase quarter over quarter from what I saw, and they also did say that they expect 57% of the backlog to be recognized in the next 12 months. So I think that should give us some good visibility into what kind of revenues we can expect for the next year. I'll be doing that math later on. Sorry, it's difficult to read comments and keep talking and stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of those numbers, how you feel about space systems. Yeah, the general hiring I do like. I do wonder if some New Zealanders who they seem to have a very, anti-military culture there. I've already heard of some protests against Rocket Lab in New Zealand. I think it's pretty small, but I wonder if that could, bring a little anti-Rocket Lab attention to them over in that country anyway, especially as it continues to, increase exposure on the US side of things as opposed to the American side of things. Just thoughts, but yeah, I really like the hiring. I think it could help them get more revenue from the Space Force down the line. I've talked a lot about how I think those giant NSSL contracts are so important for the future of Neutron. What else did I take notes on? They do expect the gross margins to continue to improve. They have $374 million of cash remaining on the balance sheet right now. But that does include a $100 million loan, I believe, that came current recently. and they are planning to refinance that loan. So they're not going to pay it off. They're going to refinance it into the future, and I guess have that available, either a loan or a line of credit. I'd have to double check that. Yeah, obviously gross margins in the quarter weren't as good as they could have been if we didn't have that anomaly. Not so much from the cost of doing the investigation and all that, but just because that's 2 less launches, that's, 15 less million dollars of revenue, and just one very small group of activists. Okay, that's good to hear. I don't, again, I've never been to New Zealand. I don't claim to be an expert on the culture there, but I have seen some comments online very much talking about, like, anti-military, and also talking about Rocket Lab in that regard. But that's nice to hear. What else? So Q4 revenue, they were guiding for about 69 million, I believe. So that's pretty much flat with Q3, or maybe just a small bump. Obviously, only 2 launches in the quarter means that they're not going to have a ton of revenue from launch. So I guess any increase will be coming from Space Systems. Sorry, now I'm just reading comments. Dave, you had a good video about possible raise. Yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't hate it. The thing that they were saying that I found interesting was Adam Spice was talking about this, and I think he was choosing his words very carefully. So he said, we're confident we have the capital to do what we said we would do, which is build out the Space Systems business and bring Neutron to the pad. So I think the one thing is bringing Neutron to the pad and getting that first launch off is different than, having Neutron be a profitable business line. So I guess that's the only question I have is, like, they say they have enough to do that, and sure they do, but is that, the end? Because the first launch of Neutron is probably not going to have a real payload, so they don't make any money off that. There is often failures on a first launch. They can take a few. They do plan to start off doing like maybe 3 or 4 launches, but that's pretty crazy when you think about it. Like, 3 Neutron launches is more than, like, that's 150 million, so that's more than 15 Electron launches. It's just, the scale helps so much, of course. So yeah, I guess that's one of the reasons why you really want Neutron. If they hit 100 million in Q1, in terms of revenues, no, they won't be cash flow positive in Q1, even if they do bring in that 100 million. Yeah, that was the guidance for Q4, by the way. I was very excited about. So I never expected them to give any guidance, or sorry, Q1. I never expected them to give any guidance for Q1 of 2024, because they usually only guide out for a single quarter, but they did. So they said for Q1 of 2024, we are looking at $95 to $105 million in revenue. Space Systems making up 65 to 68 of that, the rest coming in from launch. And launch, it would be like 4 to 5 launches, I believe. So obviously that's a great number of launches. Anytime there's more than 4 in a quarter, I'm quite happy. And Space Systems seems to be growing pretty well. I mean, the entire quarter, we had about 68 million this quarter, and then in Q1 2024, we're looking at 68 just from Space Systems. So I think that is good growth. Apollo Fusion IP that would be worth picking up. I honestly have no idea on that one. I don't know. I assume they're building out satellites okay right now that I would assume have propulsion, but maybe the Apollo Fusion engines have more value. It's hard to say. Maybe someone in the comments. Yeah, I think we're looking good. I really liked the earnings call, and not just what was in the presentation, but the Q&A and how Peter sounded and how Adam sounded and the whole thing. Talking a little bit about the Q&A section now. Thanks, Russell. I do really appreciate that. And yeah, I remember your name. I see you. I think you did do a super chat a while back, which I do appreciate, at least a couple And yeah, I do recognize a lot of your guys' names. So I guess that's one of the benefits of still having a really small channel, you know? I mean, there's a lot of perks to having a big one, but uh, having a small channel, at least you get to know the people you're talking to. So, what they asked about in the Q&A. Basically, the first question was around, how solid is that 22 number? Could it dip to 20, maybe go up to 24? And Peter basically said, look, we're kind of sold out at 22. We do think it's looking pretty solid. That is what we expect. Yeah. Yeah, you're an OG as well, Francisco. Anyway, so the 22 number is looking pretty solid. That's what they expect. A customer could always not be ready to go to the pad. There could be another issue. They do expect to make significant progress on their margins in 2024, which I expect as well. I think that's really exciting. Launch margins continue to get a lot better. And more recognitions from the MDA contract should be better. He did give us a bit of color saying that because they're so new to manufacturing satellites on the space, we do need Austin in here. He was just on the Discord, but yeah, I don't know. I guess he's not around right now. So because they were new to getting these big contracts on the space system side of things, they kind of had some onerous requirements around when they get paid for that MDA Globalstar contract, but they've been over the worst of it now, so it should be a bit better going forward, and they'll get some more revenues from it. Sorry, now I'm just reading comments here. Validation Neutron passing first stage test. Yeah. Name an airline for a flight? I don't know what you're talking about there, buddy. Anyway, so in terms of Neutron timeline, they were asking if there's any adjustments. No adjustments yet. So they're still sticking with their current timeline. I think the longer we go without any delays announced, I mean, obviously the better. Maybe that's kind of a dumb thing to say, but if there was some significant delays that they were seeing or problems they were seeing, then yeah, then we would probably have a delay announced already. Yeah, I do think, I don't think we're dropping below 4, Johnny. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even talk about the investigation around the failure. It was really interesting, really in depth. I'm glad they gave us all that info. I'm not an engineer, but Peter dumbed it down for us a little bit, talking about the difference of the the arcs of electricity. Oh my gosh. Thanks, Ghost Eye. You don't have to do that. I mean, you're already a channel member, but I do appreciate it very much. Yeah, you're the best. OG in so many ways. So yeah, it was interesting to hear the investigation and the results. And it seems like the electric, the batteries for their electric turbo pumps have been the source of maybe a few issues. I know it's kind of something unique to Electron. I do wonder if it's really been worth it over the long run, having the electric powered turbo pumps as opposed to, I think, a normal rocket engine. Again, I'm just a layman here, but that's just kind of my thoughts. Maybe someone who's more of an expert on rocket engines can let me know in the comments. So the cadence growth on Neutron, what they're thinking is kind of similar to how Electron went. And that's basically because, they don't have unlimited money. So they were kind of asked, and by the way, the quote of the earnings call, I think, is that Peter basically said, there is huge demand for Neutron, and that's just like end of sentence. That's it. So love to hear that, obviously. And he went into the whole thing around why they're not signing contracts, and he explained for the 100th time that they don't want to give any discounts to sign any early deals. The people signing these early deals, they're allowed out of it whenever they want. They have to give significant discounts because the rocket isn't ready. So they're really confident in their design. They're really confident in the rocket. They're not going to give any discounts. They're going to wait until the rocket is closer to being ready and then charge full price, say a Relativity who's got this giant backlog where customers can get out of it whenever they want, assuming, and then if the rocket isn't ready, who knows? Plus they've, given really cheap contracts. So he went through that with Electron, because that's what they did on Electron. They got contracts early, they gave discounts, and it was just a huge pain to work through and not really worth it at all to sign those early deals. and he's learned that the hard way. So that was pretty interesting. And for the timeline, it's kind of similar to Electron's timeline in terms of the cadence growth. So I'll be going back and double checking that. But I think we're looking at, maybe like starting with 3-ish a year and build up from there. And the question was, why, if you're so confident in this massive demand, why don't you just build out the capacity to launch, tons of them right away? And he basically said, look, we're doing this as responsibly, fiscally as possible. We don't have the kind of cash to just build out, massive factories right away and start pumping out neutrons. We'll get a few going. We'll prove out that it works. We'll get more contracts. We'll get more money from it. Continue to build out our capacity. Oh, and another quote that I thought was extremely interesting is he said, like, there will be inevitable improvements for Neutron as well as block upgrades. And that word block upgrade I thought was extremely interesting because, you see block upgrades from rockets in the past, and often they seem to result in like increases in the amount. Sorry about that noise. I don't know if you guys can hear it. Often they seem to result in like increases in the amount of payload they're able to bring to LEO. So potentially down the line, we get Neutron Block 1, Block 2, Block 3, Block 4 maybe, and suddenly it's doing, a lot more payload than the 11-ish tons we're looking at, I believe it was, or was it oh God, I'm forgetting my numbers here. Anyway, suddenly it's doing a lot more payload than this initial version, which would be exciting to see. In terms, and then from there, the 3 to 4, they would just have a gradual increase as they, expand not only the factories, but the ground infrastructure supporting the launch. And the interesting thing in terms of looking at timelines is he said that the rocket informs the ground infrastructure in a lot of ways. So until things are fully set, they may not want to have the ground infrastructure set. I thought it was kind of the other way around. So yeah, the thing is, we've got paid from Varda and kind of washed our hands with it at this point, so it's their problem bringing it back into orbit. I wouldn't mind an update either, and of course, I guess there is future launches with them and stuff, or future craft, but that wasn't a question either. Will be interesting to see how that market shapes up, though, for the pharmaceuticals, if that can be significant at all in the future. So, in terms of what else was asked? When they were asked about the loan, they said, you're going to refinance it, not pay it off. So 17 cents now is pretty good. Neutron Heavy. Who was it? I think it's Daniel keeps telling me that Neutron Heavy is going to happen for sure, and I've been skeptical. I would be happy to be wrong. Maybe one day, Russell, maybe. So yeah, capital constrained. They're building out, slow and steady, kind of like they did with Neutron. There is huge demand. They're talking to people for launching entire constellations, multiple launches, not just a single launch. Everything sounds good for Neutron. We did get an update on that little checklist that they had, with a lot more check boxes done as the process continues. So large customer, yeah, perhaps if they, you may be right about that, Kostai. And yeah, they did say that in terms of run rate, their cash is sufficient to get to the pad. Their cash consumption, Adam Spice said, would probably stay at this level for another quarter or two before starting to taper down, which will be good to see. It's always nice to see the cash burn going down instead of up as you go towards profitability, even though logically, there's a reason to spend this money. There's a very good reason, and it makes sense, and it's going to make a massive impact in the future. Just psychologically looking at your company, seeing the cash burn get towards zero and then profitability just feels nice. So looking forward to that in probably a few quarters, hopefully. 2024 is looking great, guys. 22 launches. You're looking at a lot of, Q1 alone, you're looking at $68 million in revenues from Space Systems. If you just annualize the 2024 numbers, we're over $400 million per year, and you would think that growth would continue throughout the year. So maybe we're looking 500 million plus, like $500 million in revenue. Like we're starting to get some big numbers here. Talking about, yeah, they're very excited internally about having their first quarter over $100 million. Very exciting, exciting times for the company. So that's most of what I had in terms of the Q&A. I guess the last thing was Celero. Not a big deal to me, but he said they're going to trail their initial estimate of when they, get that margin up to the 30-ish% rate by maybe a quarter or two, but it's still going in the right direction. They're not signing any new solar projects with gross margins below that 30% number that they want. They're really making sure they're going to stay above it, and they think there's maybe even room to go up from there, which is nice. And that's kind of most of it for the Q&A. I felt like a lot of confidence from Peter and Adam. They seemed like, it seemed good. So I guess that's kind of it for my sum up. And if you guys, we have Austin here. We were wondering where you were, Austin. Nice of you to pop by. Thanks for everything you do with the Discord. Always appreciate it. Is there any questions or anything anyone wanted to talk about? Because I've gone through, I think, the majority of what they said in the call. Obviously, I'm going to check out the filings later on and going to make some more videos once I update my models with these new numbers. Now that we have the full year numbers, basically going off of the Q4 guidance, and then Q1 we have the guidance. We also have the saying they're going to recognize about 50% of their backlog revenue in 57% in 2024 or the next 12 months. That should give us some good clarity on future revenue. So I'll have to figure out how much money we think we're going to make next year. Did I notice how big? Yeah, I've been saying for a while now, like I'm very happy with how Electron is doing on the demand side of things. It was always a question for a while, like, is the demand there? Because there's no one else to point to in the business who's clearly like showing the demand. But the demand, the backlog has been amazing. It's been growing very well. We keep seeing these new high-profile contracts. Obviously, Haste is helping a lot. Prediction on when burn slows to stops video. I could do that. It's kind of in with my financial projection. Obviously, that's a bit of an old one now and out of date because things have changed. Oh my gosh. Thanks so much, Man on Mars, LFG. Am I allowed to say that? I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. Let's fucking go. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for your super chat. Very much appreciated. Thanks for watching as well. Only two. Yeah, I thought that as well, Francisco. Like, it seems low from Virginia, and I assume those are all Haste launches. So it's starting to seem like Virginia is going to be almost. Thanks, Dave. I guess we'll find out if this video gets somehow taken down or something. Yeah, if I am allowed to say it, I'll keep saying it. I don't care. Yeah, it seems a bit low from Virginia. I don't know if that's something to be disappointed about, because from what I hear, the margins are actually better if more launches go from New Zealand. So New Zealand has more fixed costs, so the cost kind of stays the same no matter how many launches they have. And if they have more, then that's more revenue to the bottom line. Whereas in Virginia, they have like a cost per launch. So there's like a flat cost for each launch, meaning the cost isn't fixed. So it's actually kind of better that more launches are in Virginia or are in New Zealand. But I kind of just psychologically want to see more, because it's like they did all this work to get the pad up and running, and then to have 3 launches, it's not a ton. But I'm getting excited about Haste. It's growing more. They talked about a new kind of mission profile for Haste they'll be doing, where I think they're going to be releasing the payload while still ascending, as opposed to, I guess, being beyond the top of the ballistic arc. So maybe that could drive some future business. There was some speculation going on about world events driving future business as well. Clearly, geopolitically, things are not very stable right now. And there's some articles on that as well. Thank you very much, RJ Williams, for your comments. I always appreciate it. when I hear people say stuff like that. And U.S. Yeah, it's funny. U.S. and Australia signed that deal. Australia doesn't have all that much space tech, as far as I'm aware, but it's been one of the frustrations with Rocket Lab. There's these treaties in place where they're not allowed to transfer certain, I guess, stuff that's considered confidential or top secret or like weapons related, which I guess rockets are considered weapons related, from the US side of Rocket Lab to the New Zealand side of Rocket Lab. So it's kind of crazy to me to think that internally two guys working for the same company can't just talk and share whatever they want. But the guy on the American side is literally not allowed to send certain things to the guy in New Zealand. It's crazy to me, but maybe they'll get a treaty someday. I don't know. That's one of the reasons I think why building a Neutron out in the States will be good. They don't have to worry so much about that because there's no problem with the data from New Zealand going back to the United States. There's no rule against that as far as I'm aware. It's just the other way. And yeah, Rocket Lab does have the Australia subsidiary. I think there was some speculation online about eventually someone talked about the theory of having them launch from Australia at some point. I don't know how realistic that is. I do know it, like with launch, the closer you are to the equator, the better, is what I understand. So Australia may be a little worse in that sense. Am I? Sorry, I don't mean to roast the Aussies. Anyway, I love the Australians. I just, Canada doesn't have a huge space industry either. We have our Canada arm, which we're all very proud of, and we have MDA, which is an interesting company. Electron backlog's looking great. Yes, that is correct, Tim. Yeah, and then there was also a question, I guess I didn't really mention, they were talking about, asking why aren't you increasing Electron prices now that Virgin Orbit's gone? I don't know that Virgin Orbit was really taking many payloads from Electron, but they just kind of said they think 7.5 is a pretty fair price for right now, and they do see it going up down the line. So they didn't give any firm numbers, but yeah, they see it going up, not down. Okay, so Varda's definitely going to land their capsule in Australia. I mean, good for them. Like, how hard is it to land a small capsule? Like, I don't know. This whole thing with Varda not being able to bring back their capsule seems a little bit crazy to me, but I guess that's just red tape and regulations for you. I might have to wrap up the live stream soon, guys. Gotta go to dinner here. The fiance, I guess, is going to be waiting for me. We are currently in Jamaica, if you're not aware. It's super hot here, but it's been a good time. Sorry I wasn't able to actually live stream the actual earnings, because that's always fun. But yeah, clearly I don't have my regular setup with me, so. Any final questions or final things you guys want to talk about or share with the rest of us? Thanks. No problem. I do enjoy hanging out with you guys, and especially the live stream, because I can see what you're saying and respond right away. And it's always fun. Like, I recognize the names, as I said. Like, being a small channel, one of the perks is like I recognize your guys' names, and I almost know your personalities at this point. At least I feel like so. Thank you guys all for tuning in. I do appreciate it very much, especially the 2 super chats. I appreciate those. I believe it was it Russell? And I'll double check, but yeah, I very much appreciate those super chats. Thanks to channel members, of course, for helping to keep the channel going. I'll be back in Canada soon with a more regular video. Thanks, James, and yeah, I'll definitely continue having a good time on vacation. See you guys next time. Overall, yeah, just great earnings. I'm very, very happy with it, and I hope you guys are as well. See you later. Bye.